to share more about this exciting initiative with us. And then we'll be joined by some industry professionals from Department of Child and Family Services and other organizations. Minister, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Alicia. Good afternoon to everyone. And thank you for taking the opportunity to stream in with us today. I know it's a very busy day for many of us as we are in pre-hurricane preparation, and we want to send the message out to everyone. Hurricanes teach us many things and help us to come together to help one another, and so we just want to continuously send out prayers for our island home, and we are very hopeful and we know that we will get through this. So, just a covering for our island. I want to say hello and welcome to our very first panel discussion. On our topic, actually our campaign, the Ministry of Social Development and Seniors, as well as the Department of Child and Family Services, and many industry professionals who will be with us throughout this campaign to share some very valuable information and resources that is designed to help families and assist families. I just want to give a little bit of background to why we decided to embrace this campaign, which is called Nurturing Our Nation's Imperfect Parenting Series. Uh, while the Department of Child and Family Services has a survey assessment that they do with some of their clients, and then that is a strengths and needs assessments. And so out of that assessment comes information in regards to where parents or primary caregivers are requesting more assistance. And so the area of coping skills and parenting skills was highly requested year after year. And while this is a request through parents within the Department of Child and Family Services, it is also a request of any parent who has any sort of responsibility for guardianship that it is important that we have access to information as it relates to coping skills and parenting skills. We have heard before parenting does not come with a book, and that's why we've also decided to name this series the Imperfect Parenting Series, because we are not perfect as parents. We are going on this journey day by day and learning how to engage and communicate and raise our children. And so, this first segment panel discussion is entitled Routines. So, we will talk about routines today, and actually, we will have subsequent um, panel discussions in the months ahead for September, October, and November. It'll be the last two Thursdays of the month, where we will be talking about topics related to boundaries, effects of bullying and domestic violence on children, co parenting and nurturing parents, personal care and wellness, as well as nutrition and meal planning. Today, this is being streamed on our Facebook page live, the Ministry of Social Development and Seniors Facebook page live. But if you missed the contents today, please feel free to go back and watch it on government's web page, Facebook page, Twitter page, and YouTube pages. And it also, the content can also be found on our CITV channel 2 and WOW channel 102. So, without further ado, I'd just like to thank the panelists that we have here today with us. We have Mr. Kenton Trott with the Bermuda Police Service. We also have Chardonnay Rollins, social work assistants with the Department of Child and Family Services. We have Stephanie Otterbridge, as well as Danae Burchell with the Coalition for Protection of Children. And we also have Dr. Allison Daniels, who represents the Child Care Regulation Program with the Department of Health. So I want to say welcome, and I'm excited about this venture. It's something that we've been working on for a very long time, and I think it's very important that we use the expertise that we have locally to share information in a public forum. So thank you again, and I will give it back to Alicia.
Thank you, Minister. And I'm excited to have this panel because I know that we're going to get so many nuggets of good information. So let's jump right into it. The first question that we have around routines is, let's break it down. What are routines? What is involved in a routine? What does that look like? And what can people consider?
I would say that routines are the blueprint for the family functioning. They assist with getting things done, spending time together, and having fun. They're an overall guide for family members in knowing their individual responsibilities in assisting the family's overall function. Um, yeah, that's what I would encapsulate as in a short form.
Okay, does anyone have anything else to add? Or if you want to elaborate on what are some of the benefits of having a routine?
Sure. So everything that Chardonnay said. But obviously the benefit of a routine is it makes our days easier, right? At the most basic benefit. It makes our days easier, but it also allows children to know what's coming next. And when a child knows what's coming next, they can build self-confidence around their day and navigating through their lives in general on a long-term um, perspective. So it definitely does make parents' days easier, but it does also help with the actual development of self confidence and self esteem for our little ones.
It also contributes to, how we operate. So as far as getting enough sleep, ensuring that, you're eating
Mhm.
nutritious meals. Routines kind of build all of those components to make us run and function on a day-to-day basis.
I would say as well, if we think of it as specifically for younger children, this is their jobs. The same way that we have jobs that we go to every day, learning and growing are our children's jobs. And so having routines really help ground every day. We know what's going on, like we know what time we make, we typically know what time lunch is, things like that. With children, the routines are the same sort of guidelines that they need to anchor their day. And so since the language may not always be there depending on the age of the children, it's really important for parents to put in those routines so that the same way we like to have structure and know what's expected, it's the same sort of thing for our children that need that as well.
I agree. And I also think it brings a level of practice to this daily task, right? So a very young child, let's say like a 2 year old, probably isn't the best at brushing their teeth by themselves. But if they're brushing their teeth every day, routinely, they're bettering themselves at that task. So there's little small life skills are being built up as you carry out your routines daily with your kids.
Okay, so at what age would you say is appropriate to begin implementing routines? And do you think that children should be involved in that process?
So essentially, I think routines start as an infant. You have
Mhm.
a feeding schedule, you have a sleep schedule, and that's to help the parent to get adjusted, but also to ensure that the child knows what's coming next. It's like, okay, I know that I have a nap time. I may be crying for this nap, but it's around the same time every day. So when that child then moves to nursery or preschool, they are aware of what they have to do next. So I think routines begin from newborn age.
I would concur definitely at birth. Once the baby comes home, you start to build those routines. And like you said, it definitely is the routines more for the parents, but they start to learn from what the parents do. And it really helps them for future successes, for understanding the routines and what the expectations are.
Yeah. And it's never too young to to have a child to start their own routine, right? So I have from personal perspective, I have a 3 year old, and he knows every day he comes home, he puts his little lunch kit on the bottom of the steps, and then he knows that mom is gonna go and wash, out his containers. As he gets older, maybe he is building or like scaffolding on that routine. And so he's going from just resting it on the steps to, okay, now I know how to take my containers out and rest them on the side. And as he gets older, hopefully to middle and high school, is washing his own containers and packing his own lunch. So it's always like scaffolding and building on what they already know with their routine.
Okay, so do you have any tips on like talking to children about it in a way that maybe doesn't seem burdensome so that we can get like maximum buy-in from them?
I know sometimes we talk about kind of making it a game at a young age. So seeing if we can put on a timer to see if they're able to do things within a certain time period. Even you as the parent, you may have a lunchbox. So maybe like, okay, let's see who can get our containers cleaned out the quickest. Having them involved in that process is very important because once they have buy-in, then they're more willing to do it. It's a little bit about willingness, also about, having them do what you need them to do at the same time.
Another suggestion is to have like a little chart or like little sticky thing. That's what I did to work for me. I'm having a chart to say, pack away school shoes, pack away lunch bag, make a bed, whatever the task is. And then they can just put the little, either the sticker there or the little magnetic, because nowadays they have little magnetic things where you could put the sticker and, they could get maybe a treat if they do all of the tasks. So that's another way that can assist, because, and it is also a visual representation to show, hey, wait, you still have 5 tasks you have to do before bedtime, so to speak. So that's another ideal suggestion.
And I think it's funny because a lot of people are like, why do I have to reward my child for doing the things that they're supposed to do, right? And when you look at it, we come to work every day and our reward is a paycheck. So we're doing a number of tasks throughout the day so that we can get that reward at the end of the month or the end of the week as being paid. So I think, having that conversation with children about, these are the things, yes, that mommy or daddy expects you to do. But at the end, having that little treat, okay, you did an awesome job this week of getting everything done. You can have ice cream on Saturday night, something as small as that. It doesn't have to be something expensive. It could be just a treat after dinner.
I would add that rewards also reinforce good behavior from like a psychological perspective as well, Pavlov's dog. So to reinforce that behavior and to keep the child motivated to reach such expectations, rewarding them is key, as well as having consequences as well. Because they have to realize that, okay, if you don't do what you're told in the real world, you are going to be, disciplined for not following through. So as well as you have a reward system, you should also have like a point system, for example, when it comes to disciplinary action, like less screen time or no screen time, or you can't have a sleepover and things like that.
And I also think it's opportunity to explore your child, right? So it may not be ice cream. Like I said, I have a 3-year-old right now, and we're struggling with brushing your teeth, but we have to brush your teeth every morning. So he really likes little pennies recently and little quarters. So I've been leaving a little penny on his mouthwash, and after he brushes his teeth, he puts it into the piggy bank, and that's helping him with his fine motor skills, as well as it's something he likes to do. So it could be something small. It could be, today we're gonna be able to have an extra 10 minutes of coloring, or we're gonna do something that's educational, but they also still like it and it's enjoyable for them. It doesn't always have to go to a lollipop, which is the choice always, or ice cream. Finding those little things that your child likes that may mirror as a reward, and is also beneficial to their development.
And
I would say as well, since we're talking about sort of, we don't want to set it up where there's this belief that if I do something, then I get something.
Yeah.
Also trying to build it into your processes. I think somebody talked about TV time. If you typically have TV time, then maybe you're able to pick the channel. Maybe, like you said, you get to spend another 10 minutes reading a book. I think the reward, again, always depends on the age of the child, the interest of the child. But I know when I grew up, it was always like, well, I want money, or I want a treat, or I want this. It doesn't necessarily have to be monetary or something that's an addition, but maybe just a way to enhance sort of what you're typically doing anyway, so that it doesn't feel like, from a parent's perspective, like, well, why am I rewarding my child for doing what they typically should? You want to, again, get that buy-in and have a sense of gratification at the end, but you may be able to build in that reward in another way so that it's not like bribery.
Yeah.
And also keeping in mind that, I have a teenager now, but in middle school, explaining to him, if you get the 5 things that you need to get done earlier,
Mhm.
then you'll have more TV time essentially anyways, because you have more free time.
Work
So
way later.
exactly, exactly. And then as far as the consequences, I think it's important to have them, appropriate to the action. So like, for instance, my son, he came home a little late past his curfew. I can always take away his phone because that's the go-to for parents, but that has nothing to do with him coming in late. So the next time he wanted to go out, his curfew wasn't 10 o'clock. It was now 9 because, I need you to show me that you can come home on time before I can extend you back to 10 o'clock. So making sure that the consequence matches the actual action that the child does.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that's very crucial. So now that we have talked a bit about this, can we segue into maybe doing like age appropriate routines? So maybe giving like toddlers, preschoolers, primary age, and so forth.
I would say for toddlers, a great thing for them would be to eat in their meals, actually finish what's on their plate to get used to that. Brushing their teeth, like Tinee said she does with her toddler, helping to get dressed in the morning. So, like a parent can line up the clothing items, but then the child has to like, put the underpants on, put your socks on, things like that.
Mhm.
Reading books, playing. Because with play, you have to pack up as well. So that's a great way for a child to learn that responsibility, and even a bedtime regimen. So, after dinner, you might have some playtime. After you pack up, want to sing the cleanup song if that still exists with parents. You're going to have a bedtime story, and then you're going to get in bed and start to wind down. So teach that type of
Mhm.
responsibility. With primary school, I would say that's when you can introduce a morning routine. So start getting in the habit of setting an alarm clock, or getting up at a certain time. And then, they have a task, like Kenton said. So in the morning, they can say, wake up at 6:30. By 7:15, you need to have brushed your teeth, had a shower, come downstairs for breakfast, pack your school bag, or assist mommy packing the school bag, because it depends on the primary school age, right? And then come home, unpacking your school things, assisting with packing lunch, your bedtime routine, like getting a shower, preparing yourself for bed, homework, attending your extracurricular activities, like going, make sure you get a dance. Once you come home from dance, what do you have to do? Okay, unpack your school stuff, do your homework, etc. Reading with your parents or alone, different things like that. I would say for toddler and primary. When it comes to adolescents, I think by then the blueprint has already been made from when you're small up to now, so you can do things more independently. So an adolescent should technically not have the parent up underneath them saying that you need to do X, Y, and Z before leaving, and X, Y, and Z before, going to bed. So they should already be in that habitual habit of, okay, I have to get a shower, I have to do,
Mhm.
eat my breakfast, leave to get to school on time, catch the bus, the ferry, or be in the car with my mama, or whatever the case may be. They should also be at the age where they can pack their own lunch, prepare the items from school, assist with ironing, or polishing their school shoes, laundry, cleaning their room, curfew on the weekend, like Stephanie said for her son, different things like that.
And
I
I
like
think,
that you talked about independence. Many times with the younger children, we don't think that they can have independence, but I think it all depends on your child. So when you use the example of laying out the clothes, another way with the routine that can foster independence and a sense of choice is sort of saying, all right, today we're going to wear, do you want to wear the blue shirt or the green shirt? Do you want to
exactly.
wear these shoes or these shoes? Because again, as we know with little ones, I think Stephanie had said it as well, sort of if they buy into it, then they're more likely to do it. And
Mhm.
so instead of laying out all sort of the options, whatever it is, where appropriate, obviously, giving them a sense of making a choice and then following through on that decision, I think helps as well. But like Chardonnay said, once you start in those younger years, it's easier to then get them to have that self-confidence and the independence to do it when they're older. So at times as parents, we're rushed. We got to get out of the door. Just put on your clothes. Let's go. I ain't got time for this. But it is actually better for you as a parent to take that time so that the child learns through those routines and making those choices, because later on in life, it's easier for you.
Yeah.
And I think also being flexible about it. Like
Mhm.
I give my son a time period to do things. He's a bit older now. So by the time I get home, if I knock off at 5, I get home something like 5:30, quarter to 6. He's been home for an hour and a bit. In that time, he should have changed his school uniforms, take taking feeding the animals and taking them outside, and drying the dishes and packing them away. At this point, it doesn't matter to me what order they're done in, as long as those tasks are complete by the time that I get home.
Yeah. And I think checking in I'm also a parent of a teen, checking in with your child when they began to develop their own routine. So my daughter, she loves doing her hair. So she was waking up mornings doing her hair, spending 2 hours in the bathroom. The same baby hair from yesterday is done. But she was really doing that every day. And she was waking up like really early to do it. So it took me a minute to say, hey, I realize you're waking up a little bit earlier. Why don't you just do this in the night before you go to bed and wrap your hair up? You can sleep in a little longer. You're not as tired at school. And you can spend the same 2 hours on the hairstyle. So checking in with your teens or your preteens to see, how the routine that they have for themselves or that you have for them is working. And again, that choice and that buy-in piece is really important across the lifespan. So I think that's important.
Okay, so understandably, a lot of routines are going to come from like our upbringing, how we choose to parent. So now we're talking about two parents, right? And then sometimes we have blended families. So as we get into that, dealing with different parenting styles, let's say that we have children that are going between households. Do you think that the routine should be different? And if they are different, do you feel that that would impact them? Let's say one house maybe has a routine, one doesn't. From your professional experience, how do you feel like that impacts children?
I'll jump in on that one. It could be controversial. In an ideal world, I think for consistency with children, it doesn't even matter what their age, having the same consistent routines is beneficial. But that's not the world that we live in. And so at many times, one household may be more strict than the other. And the expectation is, well, they should do what I do. But if that is not the relationship that's shared between parents, the only thing that you as a parent can be in control of is yourself. And so if you are consistent with your routines and your child understands what is required by you, that's what you show them. If the other parent decides to be more lax for whatever reason or more strict, you as the parent have to be okay with that. Because if not, there can create issues in the future with the dynamics between yourself and the child, your partner and the child, things like that.
Yeah. And I also think as working in a co-parent situation, you really have to take the ego out of your parenting style, right? So really check in with yourself. Am I saying that ABC has to be done in that order because of my ego or because that's really what my child needs in that moment? Can I be more flexible when I know my child's at the other parent's house with their specific routine? Can I check in with my child when they're at their parent's house? So, I would hope that you have the ability to communicate with your child, being able to say, hey, I'm just using brush your teeth again. Did you brush your teeth? Did you go to dance today? After dance, did you do what you're supposed to do? Did you put your dance clothes in the laundry like you usually do at home? Just as a reminder, not necessarily to, hound down on the child, but checking in and knowing where your child is at while they're at the other parent's home is important.
And I think also trusting that your child will also remember their routine. So like the bedtime routine, for instance, most children, brush their teeth before they go to bed. Just because they're in a different household doesn't necessarily mean that they won't remember to do that. They may not be asked to do it like they are in your home, but it is something that they may just remember to do. So, I mean, I look at the primary, middle school, high school level. Those kids, they're basically, once they get in a routine, they will remember how to do it. It's not like they'll get to another parent's house and be like, okay, I'm doing absolutely nothing. They will remember some pieces of the routine despite what each parent does. And then also, like Tinee said, being flexible, taking the ego out, also understanding that, if there is an issue with the routine, it will reflect in the child's day. So if the child is staying up late at night, I'm pretty sure the school will make contact the next day to say, hey, this child's sleeping in class. And that'll open up that conversation for, with the other parent. What time did the child go to bed? And that'll open up the conversation between the parents, because it's showing that it's not really benefiting the child in that moment.
I would add and say that, like Dr. Daniel said, we can't control what happens in the other parent's household. So trusting the child is key, like Stephanie said. But I would say and encourage parents to have similarities, because you can have two parents in the same household who parent completely different. And the same thing can transpire in two different households of blended families. So if you can have similarities when it comes to the expectations of the child, it benefits in the long run for the overall happiness and well-being of the child. So I think, like Danielle said, put the ego out of it and say, okay, we both have to parent this little one or this teen. These are my expectations at my house. These are the expectations at your house, although they may not be completely the same. Maybe have the basics to be the same, like the brush the teeth, the bedtime, different things like that. That way it's a smoother transition between the house, especially if you've done 1 week at daddy's house where I don't have a curfew, I don't have a bedtime. And then at mommy's house, coming back the next Monday, it's going to be difficult for her to try to get you back into that routine.
And it also create relationship problems, right, between the child and the parent, because they will gravitate to the parent that is easier and who does not have the routine.
Definitely opens up room for children to manipulate the parents and play them against each other.
Well, yes, and maybe can we expand on just the need for like positive reinforcement and language around that? So, for instance, like I'm in a co-parenting situation, and so some things it's like, well, I don't have to do this when I'm at dad's house. So, not to use that as an opportunity to take a dig at the other parent, but just reinforcing, oh, this is why we have this, boundary or routine or whatever it is. This is how it's going to benefit you, and then just kind of leaving it as what they do at their house, is what they see fit, and trying to, have a positive spin on it, because I know it can easy, parents can jump on that.
I would say stop after your first sentence. So when you went and said that this is why you do it, I think the best way to avoid coming across as negative or talking down about the other parent to the child is just to educate them on why that part of the routine is important and leaving it at that. Because once you get into, well, at your daddy's house, you don't have to, et cetera, it's going to be like, well, I want to spend more time over here because I hear what you're saying, mama, but I don't really need that in my life right now. So I want to go back to my daddy's house, right? So I think just using it as a teachable experience to like, okay, if my child doesn't want to get a shower after school, talk about germs. We're living in a pandemic. You need to get a shower before you get in your bed, right? Because you're bringing the outdoor germs in. They say, well, at my daddy's house, okay, that's fine, but let me educate you on the importance of hygiene and leaving it at that without, trying to pinpoint the other parent.
I think also highlighting how it affects other people around you. So like if my son comes home late from school, he hasn't fed the dogs on time. Like, what do you think happens next? If the dogs aren't fed, then they're barking and the neighbors. So it then is a trickle-down effect. How does it affect another person or another animal if you do not do what you're supposed to do?
I agree. And even I'm going to go back to your example of the brushing of teeth. What do you think happens if you don't brush your teeth and you go to school? Smell your breath. Is that how you want people to receive you? And again, sometimes we don't even think about that. And that's why it's, your role as a parent to give them the information, make those choices. Sometimes they can at the other parent's house, and sometimes they can in your home. But again, it's just giving them the information and letting them understand the reason why for you this is important and why in this household we do this.
Exactly.
Okay, and I know we're just coming off of summer break, so maybe I can ask about routines that transpire across like school breaks and holidays. Do you feel like they're important to still maintain? Do you feel like it can be some flexibility?
I think it is important to maintain routines throughout the entire calendar year, regardless of the child being in school or not. So, for example, if you have a child that's come out for summer break, you got 2.5, 3 months off for the summer, and they have no bedtime, no structure, no responsibilities or expectations. when school starts in September, it's going to be very difficult for that child to get back into the swing of things. So, yes, keep the routine, but it can be more flexible depending on the circumstances. So, you're not going to have a child doing homework in the summer unless they're doing summer school, but you can enforce that they do read a book over the summer and tell you about what they've read, different things like that. They can have a later bedtime on weekends or um, on school breaks, etc. But you want to still have them know that they still have a level of expectations. Although we want you to have fun and enjoy your downtime, you still have expectations that need to be executed in this household because you are a functioning member of the household as well.
I agree. And I also think don't wait until that last week of your summer break to reintroduce your bedtime. Maybe June and July, you have a little bit of flexibility, but by August 1st, they should be back on that, that pretty, that school routine that they usually are on, going to sleep or waking up at a certain time.
One thing I want to add, it's sort of off topic but related in regards to the timing and routines, especially for the younger ones. Your children spend a lot of time in their daycare or their nursery setting. And so sometimes we may not even think about continuing the routines across those settings. It is really important. I think of like when you're potty training, it's easier if the child is on a regular schedule when it comes to potty training.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think this has been really insightful. So at this time, I just want to open up to all of the panelists if it's any last thoughts or experiences that you want to share to assist our parents watching. I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
I think another good thing as well is to make sure that we as parents have routines so that we can show our children that we do it too.
Absolutely.
So we can be telling our children, oh yeah, you gotta do this and that, and we do whatever we want every evening. So it's hard because obviously after they go to bed, you can do whatever you want because they can't see anything. So I know for me, I try to maintain the same routine every evening, even though it might be mundane. Do the same thing every evening with the children, and when they go to bed, I could do whatever I so desire. So I think that's important as well, that we have to model the behavior to our children, and be a part of it as well. Don't just tell them, okay, you guys have to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and I'm sitting on the couch watching TV. I should be a part of it. Although some tasks they can do on their own, it might be that, okay, well, you have to organize and set the table while daddy cooks dinner, or you have to get whatever ready while daddy does this. So we all have our routine. So I think that's an important part as well, for the parents to have a routine as well.
I would add that parents should include downtime and spending quality time as part of the routine as well. It's not always about regimented and executing the task. Like Anton said, preparing dinner, you can have like your daughter or your son assisting you. That's quality time. It's time for you to ask about their day, eating dinner together as a family, or having like Sunday morning, pancakes every Sunday. That's something a child can look forward to get that intimate quality time, because that is important when it comes to building and maintaining attachments. And also, like Kenton said, parents have downtime and children are sleeping. In their routine, they should have playtime and screen time, doing something that they enjoy as well, instead of everything just being, no, do your chores and that's it. So it should be well balanced, because we live well balanced lives, and we want to model that for our children, because you work hard, you can play hard as well.
And I think also checking in with our children about the routines every once in a while, because what may be working for us may not be working for them, or they may actually have some great input on how to change the routine so that it benefits everyone. So I think checking in from time to time just on how the routine's going, if they have any concerns or thoughts surrounding it.
And I to add, I know I talked about earlier a bit about the ego and taking your ego out of parenting. I think that's so crucial and important. We as adults, we come to we go home with our own stresses from work, from our personal lives. We have our own thoughts about what parenting should look like from our own parents, from our co-parents, and things of that nature. But really approaching children, similar to what Dr. Daniel said earlier, going to school is like a child's job, right? Absolutely. So they're also bringing home certain stresses that, you bring home from your job. So really meeting your child where they're at, taking time to check in with yourself, and parenting from a place that's child-centered and that's, thinking about the child's best interest, not necessarily, your ego and what you think a parent, should look like or has looked like. Really checking in with your child is important.
Yes, and I think some of the things I look at is, what is my child needing in this moment,
Mm-hmm.
and how do I best respond? That's how I take the ego out of, the parenting piece.
I really like that. I actually use that with my children. It's called moody moment. So usually sometime in the morning routine and like immediately after school, it's kind of like, hey guys, how's the mood? How we feeling? And they're honest. They're like, look, everybody annoyed me today. My 4 year old's like, I really wanted the toy truck, but I couldn't play with the toy truck, so I just kind of didn't want to be bothered. Or my 11-year-old might just be like, I just need some silence. My teachers have been talking all day, and I'm kind of like same page, and it helps us to understand where each other's at. And then instead of striking out kind of on one another because we're taking it out, so we just do our daily little moody moments. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because they do have moods, right? And it's so easy to sometimes like disregard there, where it's like all mood trumps all, but it's like
yeah. And I like what Chardonnay said about giving children the opportunity to have downtime. It's never too early to introduce forms of self-care in your lives. We think as adults, like I said, we have stresses, and we want to take a day off at the spa, or we want to go and use a run or exercise as a form of self-care. Putting that in your child's routine, whether it's only once on the weekends or once a day, you have a little self-care strategy. I think that's really impactful and important as well to children's routines.
They can use mindfulness. It's never too late or too early to introduce your child to mindfulness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would just say, like everybody sort of said in some form, the children learn from us. We need to show that we can be flexible. We need to allow them to be flexible. This is how they become successful children and adults later on in life. And so sometimes things may work with one child and not for another. And it's okay to adjust for that, as long as we are mindful of that, and we're always looking at what the end goal is, which is, again, to have them be successful, achieve certain goals. Then at the end of the day, we'll be able to be successful. And I always think that if you set the routines at the beginning, it not only helps the child, but the parents.
Exactly.
And some little bit of work on the front end is makes your life so much easier on the back end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for this. I don't see any questions in the comments. However, if you are catching this after it's already been streamed live, you can email us questions at askus@gov.bm. And this concludes our first episode. I hope that you found a lot of nuggets, parents. I know that these were very helpful tips. We are going to be back with another episode on the 29th of September. So that will be at 12:30 p.m. and we're going to discuss boundaries. So for those parents who are tuned in live or who are catching this afterwards, share this with all the parents that you know, guardians, family, friends, so that our community can benefit from these resources. I'm going to let the minister give us some warm words before we go.
Thank you, Alicia, and thank you to the panelists. I know I popped my face off, but I was definitely listening, and I was definitely smiling to the content, having to relate to it. I heard about routine management. I heard about checking in with routines and that downtime, which is, we need to make it part of our routine. And another point that I just wanted to mention was even private time, because we all appreciate our own private time, and children need to uh, understand what private time means to them. And I think that that is also important. So I'm going to encourage you, if you didn't catch this segment today, that you can do a rewind and you can watch it again on our government Facebook pages. There was a zone of support here and a wealth of information, and our panelists today took the time to be able to share that information with you. Well done. I thought it was good content. I do want to share that parents will we will be doing a mailer. I'm not sure if every parent will get it, but we will send it to our households in regards to save the date of the subsequent panel discussions that we will be having in regards to parenting. There is a tip for September for parents, and that tip is ask your children about their day, no matter what you think their answer is. Because as a parent, you'll say, "How was your day?" And if they are verbal, they'll say, "Oh, it was okay." And then they don't say anything else, right? But that's okay. That's okay. Children need to know that we are interested in them
Mhm.
and interested in about their day. They'll start to add more if you keep asking, right? So for the month of September, the tip is ask your children about their day, no matter what you think their answer will be. And again, just wanting to say, if you still have power on your phone and your and the power doesn't go out, please tune into this episode. It was a lot of great information, and again, I want to thank the panelists for the information that they have shared today.